Chapter 13. Goals or Dreams with Due Dates. Diana Shart Search. Rebecca's Story. My name is Rebecca. My earliest memory is from age 4. I grew up in a home of alcoholics. At that time, I thought that was normal, that just a life people lived. So it seemed normal just to pick up my mom's beer and start drinking it, not realizing it would make me a drunk to the point of passing out on the couch. I grew up as an only child, but I found out later I had 2 brothers and 3 sisters. The state had stepped in and taken the 3 girls out of the home when they discovered that my 11-year-old sister was left home to care for a child with Down syndrome. One was spina bifida and me. I was only 2 when the state took the other kids out of the home. Later I found out that 2 drunk men sexually molested my sister, which was another reason the state took away my siblings. When we moved from Jersey to Florida, the drinking didn't stop with my parents, nor did the fighting. So at the age of 14, I ran away from home. It was then that I first experienced drugs. I was smoking weed and then started doing other drugs in my teenage years. I did drugs like black beauties, yellow jackets, acid, blue blotter, purple microdor, and other things I can't even remember. It was also at the age of 14 that I started sleeping with guys. I slept with them because I thought they loved me. Boy, I was wrong. My thinking was really distorted. I was in foster homes and was a very angry little girl. I was in and out of foster homes, locked up in juvie, and in and out of different schools, running the streets and doing as I pleased. I had no respect for authority. I was going to live my life the way I wanted. Drinking and drugging was just what I knew, just what I did. It was what I learned at a very young age. I moved from Florida back to Jersey. Then at the age of 19, I came out west to San Diego. I stayed with my sister and got a job. My neighbor there introduced me to her Filipino cousin. I was young and stupid. He told me he wanted me to marry him, and he would pay me $1,500 to marry him. That sounded like a lot of money, and I could imagine what I could do with all that money. I thought I could buy some clothes, drink, and do drugs. So we got married in 1981. The following January, we went to the Philippines. When we got there, however, I found out that all the paperwork he had used to get into the U.S. was fraudulent, so we had to go through the process of redoing all the paperwork. I was there for 13 months. I wanted to come home, but he always had an excuse for why I couldn't. After 3 months of being there, he took the tickets and sent them back to his family in California. He kept my passport with him always and would take it every month to get stamped and renewed. He had to have been paying someone under the table to do this because it was my understanding that only I could legally renew my passport. Once he was able to get his paperwork done, he moved back to the United States. That was February 9, 1983. I called my mom, and she said I needed to get home as soon as possible because my dad was dying of cancer. It took me a couple of weeks before I could talk these people into buying me a ticket to get home, but finally I got home February 22, 1983. It was too late, however. On my way home, I called my mom, and she said my dad had passed away the night before I got there, February 21st, so I didn't get a chance to say goodbye to him. At that time, I was pregnant, and I stayed with my mom in Florida. I was a good girl and on a health kick. I ate healthy food, drank a lot of milk, and gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Johnny was 3 weeks old when my drinking career started again. Sometimes I allowed guilt to eat at me because I was a drunk mother, just as my mother had been a drunk mother. I was vicious to Johnny, like my mom was with me. It wasn't fair to him, and sometimes I wondered why God gave this little life to a person like me who was so broken. Only God knows. Johnny is doing well today, but he is hurting and broken too. He will be 21 in August. For years I drank. I was in and out of relationships, believing that each man was the one I loved and would spend the rest of my life with. Then I would find out that he didn't want me. He only wanted what he could get from me, or he had other women on the side. I was young and didn't realize one man had another woman until she showed up one day threatening to take me out. The first time I was raped, I was 15. He was 19 and married, and my foster brother-in-law. The second time I was raped, it was by my sister's husband. The first time I was raped, I was told that I got what I deserved. The second time, not many people knew about it because I couldn't tell anybody. I was afraid of being told I got what I deserved again, and that I was a bad person. At least that was the way I felt. I was just in and out of relationships. None of them lasted. I would sleep with these guys, think that they loved me and would marry me, then watch them take off. It was a very ugly pattern that I lived with for years. My first husband used to grab my shirt and he would pull me and pinch me on the chest. My second husband knocked me over a chair. I didn't think anything of it at the time because that's what my parents did when I was young and still living at home. You get drunk, you fight, that's life. Who would have thought anything else? After that marriage ended, I was smoking pot and leaving my kids at home with whomever would take them so I could go out drinking. I sat at home collecting my welfare check and spending it on drinking. That seemed normal, too, because that is what my mom did. When my mom and dad would get into a fight, my dad would go to jail. My mom was collecting a welfare check, then sitting in the bars until 1 or 2, 3 or 4 in the morning. Back in the 60s, the bars stayed open later, and they let you bring your kids into the bar. However, I had to be at home at a certain time to get my kids because they wouldn't let me take my kids into the bar. I would come home drunk. The kid would have to get himself up and dressed, and then he would yell at me, "Mom, get up. You've got to make my lunch. I'm going to be late." So I would drag my lazy butt out of bed, still half drunk, trying to make a lunch for Johnny because they didn't have school lunches back then. I remember that when things didn't go right, I would blame Johnny. Not that Johnny had anything to do with it. That's just one of the character defects that goes with being an alcoholic. And I never realized then that I was an alcoholic. I just didn't know it was a disease and that I had a problem. I think it was in my mid-30s that I started going to AA meetings and started seeing my character defects. I realized my life wasn't the way life was supposed to be. I was introduced to a life where people got together, had coffee, went on picnics, boating, and camping. We did all of this sober. I was learning how to live a life without alcohol, but I was still getting into bad relationships in the program because other people there had the same character defects as I. I was doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results because now I was sober, but it didn't work that way. I met God a year and a half ago. I dedicated my life to Him, got baptized in the river, and started going to church. I was still seeing the ex-boyfriend during the first year of going to church. I went over to the place one night, asked him whether he wanted me to spend the night, and he got nasty with me. I was hurt, so I went home crying. I felt worthless, that I wasn't good enough, that other people were better than I, and that he desired them more than he desired me. I wasn't worth anything. So I got on my knees and I prayed. I asked God for forgiveness for feeling this way. As plain as it could be, I heard God's voice saying, "Your identity is not with man, it's with me." Then I cried for 3 months. From that point on, God was showing me who I really was, and it was things that I didn't like seeing. I prayed so much. I have never asked for forgiveness as much as I did during those 3 months. I prayed one day and asked God to forgive me for hurting so many people. I prayed that He would lift the weight of anger and resentment off those who were hurt by my actions. That was a weight lifted off of me as well. It was a big time restoration. When I participated in Queen It's a New Day, it had a great effect on me. I felt special, being able to get my hair done and having makeup applied to my face as well as manicures. I really felt like royalty. Coming from where I was, it was really a royal experience. I finally felt like somebody worthy. It gave me just enough self-esteem to realize where I was in life and where I wanted to be. I went back to school and earned my GED. That really boosted my self-esteem past cloud 9. I went on to college to become a nurse and work with cancer patients, but God had other plans for me. Today I am in my first year at Destiny International School of Ministry. I believe in the fivefold ministry, and the one I focus on is healing. Because of where I have been and what I have gone through, I can understand the pain of others. I can do hands-on healing with these people and pray with these ladies to help them get out of the gutter. I can help them realize they are somebody too. They are God's children, and God takes care of His children. When I was in the program going to AA meetings, the book we used talked about being sober, like living in the fourth dimension. Today, doing this, going to church, and living my life for God these past 2 years, I feel like I am past that fourth dimension. The promises God has given me have happened, blessings upon blessings upon blessings. There were so many that I didn't know what to do with them all. Life is good today, and I believe I'm living beyond the fourth dimension. My goal for the future is to continue to live my life for God, serving God's will, helping others come to God. I want to help them realize He is not a punishing God, but a loving, caring, kind, and gentle God. He's here to help us. We are seated at the right hand of God with our Jesus. I want to help people realize that we have all been forgiven of our sins. No more guilt, no more shame, no more condemnation. I am set free. The chains of all bondage have been broken. Life is good today. I just turned the big 50 and life is good. My restoration came from God. If you have no hope, please don't give up. There is hope in God. The love that we never got in life we receive from God. God is full of love, and He loves you more than you could ever imagine. The torment will be gone. God has got so much peace to give you, which passes all understanding. It's there for you. The joy and happiness that goes with living this life will take you beyond the fourth dimension. It will take you into the life that you never could have imagined before.
Reflection. How does this story make you feel? Have you or someone you know had similar experiences? If you could forgive those who have harmed you, what might be different in your heart and life today? Forgiveness is a choice. This formula will help you to process the unforgiven areas of your life. Number 1, write down everyone who has hurt you. And you can pause this if you want. Number 2, write down as if you were speaking to each one what he or she did and how that behavior affected you and your life. Number 3, write God a letter asking Him to help you forgive. Number 4, write a letter to each person forgiving him or her of the behaviors, words, and actions that harmed you, not to be sent. Number 5, write yourself a letter and forgive yourself for holding on to hurt and resentment. Number 6, write yourself a letter forgiving God, yourself, and all others. And finally, number 7, now receive complete healing and give yourself permission for a fresh start and rejoice. It's a new day.